You're listening to the Industrial Talk Podcast Network.
All right, it's Scott McKenzie with the Industrial Talk Podcast. I am so glad that you are here because this is where we, industrial professionals, come to talk. So I really appreciate your time. And I know that your time is limited, so thank you very much. We've got a jam-packed show. I had the opportunity to broadcast live from, well, semi-live because it is a podcast, right? So nonetheless, from the 31st annual EHS seminar and industrial trade show in Galveston, Texas. So anyway, it was great, and that's where I connected with the gentleman by the name of John Grubbs once again. I think it's an annual event, but nonetheless, he understands exactly what's going on in, let's say, the industrial workforce and how the challenges and how they're going to be impacting businesses. So let's get going right now. So thank you very much for joining. Let's get the show on the road. So anyway, yeah, that's John Grubbs. I just can't wait to get to it. Now, you're going to be seeing sort of a little formatting issue that's a little bit different because, once again, we were broadcasting from that EHS symposium and seminar and trade show. Anyway, it's a lot of fun. I highly recommend it if you ever if you want to go to a trade show. That's a great place. It's a great venue, great people, all of the stuff there. So anyway, before we get going, let's get on with the tailgate.
Tailgate Talk number 1.
Okay, you know I've been talking a lot about Reliability Web. They're a great sponsor of Industrial Talk. And once again, reliabilityweb.com. If you have any interest whatsoever, I mean whatsoever, in the reliability world, asset management, AI, you name it, big data, maintenance, that is a single-stop shop. You go out to reliabilityweb.com. If they don't have it, it doesn't exist. And if you want to find out some more about them, I guarantee you they're an open book. So go out there and find them at reliabilityweb.com. They're wonderful people.
Number 2.
Some of you might know, but some of you might not know, because out there on industrialtalk.com, the tab Industrial Dojo, it is designed. It's a training. That's my training tab, right? It's where I'm putting all my training stuff. Anyway, out there is a series that really addresses the mind and getting that mind straight so that you can be the professional that you want to be, to fulfill that purpose you want, so desire. So nonetheless, it's out there. That's industrialtalk.com. Go to the Industrial Dojo. They're simple. They're quick. They're 6-7 minutes, but hopefully they'll help you, because what we're doing, we want to be able to fill that funnel. We want to be able to have the tools and techniques to be able to fill that funnel and resolve problems and whatever that pain and aspirations, because we're going to start getting into that right after, I think, probably about a week or so. So nonetheless, get on out there. So now let's get on to the interview. Like I said, I met John Grubbs once again out at the 31st Annual EHS Seminar and Industrial event in Galveston, Texas, and that was June 4th through the 7th. Anyway, I just went down there and I interviewed him at his booth. We set up shop, and but what makes John so incredible, outside the fact that he's a published author and he's a keynote speaker, and in fact, he was a speaker at that particular event. And if you're looking out on the video, I've got one of his books just sort of hanging out there. It's called Leading the Lazy. So it's an interesting book, interesting read. He has got tremendous insight. So for me, as the host of the podcast, I'm so honored to be able to have that gentleman, John Grubbs, to be a part of it. Because the reality is that we in the industrial world are always challenged by having the right resources available, right? And that churn that exists today, they're very challenging. For me, I'm very optimistic about the future. And this generation that they call millennials, I'm very optimistic because they look at problems differently than the way old guys like me look at problems. They're able to resolve and process it in a different fashion, so which is very, very exciting for me as a business owner. So nonetheless, John has a pretty decent handle on how to create an engaged workforce given the challenges that we have today. So with that said, here's John Grubbs. Now, there's going to be some noise in the background, but it's a conference, and you're going to hear the intro again. But nonetheless, here's John Grubbs. He's a great guy. I highly recommend it. Thank you very much for listening to the Industrial Talk Podcast. Here we go.
Welcome to the Industrial Talk Podcast with Scott McKenzie. Scott is a passionate industry professional dedicated to transferring cutting-edge, industry-focused innovations and trends while highlighting the men and women who keep the world moving. So put on your hard hat, grab your work boots, and let's go.
All right, it's Scott McKenzie with Industrial Talk, and I'm so glad that you are listening. We are coming, well, relatively live from the 31st Annual Environmental Health and Safety Seminar and Industrial Trade Show here in wonderful Galveston, Texas. And I'm not going to waste your time because we've got an interview that I think we do it on an annual basis, right there, John?
I think so.
So what we're going to do is we're going to have an interview with this gentleman by the name of John Grubbs. Now, this is his stat sheet. John is rapidly becoming the most, this is a world's foremost expert on generational change in the workplace. Apparently, you've got some great delivery relevance, high-quality information, and fun all wrapped up in your bios. But you don't want to hear about me. Tell you about you. We want to make sure that you tell us about you. So how you doing, John?
I am wonderful, Scott. Glad to be here today.
It's a good conference. I mean, there's a lot of great people that are running around here, a lot of great opportunities, too.
Oh, yeah. It's been a great conference so far. A lot of good people, a lot of people I'm getting to know, and just a great experience here in Galveston.
You were a, I guess, keynote speaker. And what was that topic on today?
So today I did a keynote on leading the tribes, building tribes at work, building a place that people want to belong to, not just the employer of choice, but, you know, someone that companies are really passionate about keeping good people.
And I know in the industrial world, that is a constant struggle, the churn, and I think we've talked about it sometime. But I want to sort of delve into the first point that I want to start going into real quick there, John, is you as an individual, why you are John Grubbs, why you became this speaker and author, because you got some books out there too as well. And what was that transformation that you said, okay, I'm going down this road. I want to do it, and I want to do it professionally. What was that aha moment?
Well, I think I started my career as a safety guy, an HR guy, and I was thrown yelling, kicking, and screaming into the world of training and development. And in 2002, when I started my company, I was, very much a typical training company, providing soft skills, that type of service to organizations, but I slowly kept getting asked to do more and more leadership training. And it wasn't until a guy asked a question one time that just totally caught me off guard. He asked if I was a leadership expert. And I said, I don't know if I would call myself an expert, but I would certainly refer to myself as a student of leadership. And that was probably that moment that made me really, really decide that this is the direction I wanted to go in life.
So now that was that aha moment that saying, hey, somebody came to me and said, are you a speaker on leadership or trainer on leadership? So you said, okay, yeah, maybe this is where I need to go. What was your first step? How did you just go down that journey and say, okay, I'm going to do it?
Well, I'm a voracious reader. I love to learn. I think the best trainers are just passionate learners. And in learning, I started accumulating information and knowledge, and that gave birth to a philosophy, Scott. I think something that I could stand behind and say, this is what I believe. And, I think that's my passion, is figuring out a way to communicate my message to an audience that really wants to hear what I have to say.
But what I'm getting at here is, and I hate to push on it, because I'm interested in knowing if the listeners out there are saying, gosh, I want to know leadership. Outside of getting your books, you didn't have any books at that time.
No, not at all. I had written some books that were technical, but no leadership books at that time.
Who was that leadership guru that you said, I got to listen to that guy?
Probably the book that impressed me the most was a book by, I just lost his name. Good to Great, Jim Collins, Good to Great. That's probably a book. And then Marcus Buckingham's First Break All the Rules. Probably two books that really left an indelible mark on me as a person who really studies leadership. What
is the pain point associated with I've been fortunate enough to be at your booth here at the conference, and people are coming up, and there's a general theme that is taking place, and everybody has that, how do I become a leader? I work for people who are not good leaders. But what is that from a company point of view? What's that pain point? That's got to be dealt with.
Yeah. I think the biggest pain point right now that organizations are facing is the need for change. I mean, we're in the midst of a huge pass the torch from the baby boomers to the millennials. And in this moment right now, there are people that are realizing that the way they're doing things, the way they have done things, are simply not going to work. And everybody doesn't go gentle into that good night. People want to fight to keep what they've been doing as relevant and important for the future of their organizations, and they're finding they just can't. They have to change.
So that's great, but what are the steps to changing? I mean, that even I see it out there. My other company, we're constantly getting cannibalized because other companies are struggling. It's like, I got to retain resources. What do I do? What is the steps that need to take place?
Yeah, the first thing I think is a personal reflection that my leadership style or philosophy is not going to work with this new generation of workers, and that I must individually first make the change. I must see the change that I want in the world in myself first. If I'm not willing to do that, then it's, you're building your future on a very, very thin foundation.
But come on, we work in the industrial world, and you know as well as I do, we're stubborn to a certain extent on recognizing that there is a necessity to even change. And we're always looking for a silver bullet to remove that pain in some way, shape, or form. How do you get to that point?
Yeah. In my experience, I call it present reality bias. We are biased to think that the way we're doing something is the right way to do it or the best way to do it. And it's very hard for us to see our own blind spots. I probably spend 80% of my coaching time with executives helping them identify their blind spots, but they exist at all levels, from the CEO of the organization to the supervisor that's been in the plant for 20 years.
I like the term present reality bias.
Absolutely.
I think that really encapsulates that challenge. So how do you, as you got the problem, you've got the recognition that the change is, it's not something that may happen, it is happening, and then getting to the decision makers, the leaders, to recognize that they've got this reality bias. What type of avenues or road do you take them down?
The analogy I like to use, it's like realizing you're pregnant. The baby is going to come. And, for someone to realize that this workplace and workforce are changing, it creates a sense of urgency to make plans, that we're going to live in a world where the workforce does not put their job or their livelihood as the first priority in their lives. It doesn't mean that it's not important, but that is not how they define themselves as humans. And in a world like that, where they work is not near as important as who they work with.
So, you're culturally, that pain point, what is that end of the road? What do you see an organization achieve? Now, because you're absolutely right. Our generation, we sat there and said, okay, we're going to, we're 100% behind this doggone company. We're going to do everything. And it is the first and foremost priority in our world. What do you see the future like in this environment of whatever you call it?
So true organizational change is always precipitated by some form of pain. The pain could be losing good people. The pain could be not making enough money. The pain could be being irrelevant in your industry. I love to talk about companies who are so fighting in this red ocean of competitive strategy. They fight each other. The water's bloody. And, great companies are looking for blue water, looking for that blue ocean where there's no competition. And, it's very hard for a company to self-diagnose their own problems.
Well, because what happens if I'm a company that is so involved in its bias, and I don't want to change, what do you think is going to happen to me as that company?
Those companies become irrelevant. We're seeing it right now in the telephone industry. They're going away if they don't change their methodology. We saw it recently with Toys R Us and Sears. Blockbuster. I believe in the not so distant future, people are going to be buying their cars online and picking them up at an automated kiosk. So
it's already starting.
Yeah.
I don't know the name of the business, but it's already starting.
Carvana.
That's exactly right. That's cool.
Yeah. So all those things are happening, and companies are so blind to their own way of thinking, or that they can't see what the future looks like. And it often takes someone to come in and kind of give them that 50 joule jolt to their system that, hey, it's time to look at how do we do things differently going forward.
Because it's important, and I know that I deal with this all the time, is getting that quality individual to backfill all the people that it just churns. They're not going to stay there for. I walked around this conference and I asked people, "Hey, how long you been with the company? How long?" It's an average of 3 to 4 years.
Yeah,
that's it.
Yeah, and the first presentation I gave this week was about behavior-based safety, which is a methodology to really, really take your safety program to the next level. And these are the world-class athletes when it comes to safety. We're in the petrochemical world. They're the best of the best. And I said, okay, how many of you in the room, there was about 100 people in the room, how many of you in the room have some form of behavior-based safety in your facility? And everybody raised their hand. And then I said, of those of you that just raised your hand, how many of you have a process that's working effectively right now? One person raised their hand.
Jeez.
So one person out of 100 are claiming that this important process that they're using is adding value to their organization, but yet they do it anyway. They're so biased to the present reality that it's very hard to see what the future might look like.
I got to tell you, man, it's an exciting time and a frightening time all at once. It's an emotional roller coaster, especially in an industry that hates changing. Just industry in general hates changing. And what you're talking about is just tremendous disruption. And either you change or you don't. And if you don't, there's consequences.
Change or die.
Wow, man. Okay, we're going to take a break. We are once again coming from the EHS conference here in Galveston, the 2018, I believe. And I'm talking to John, and we're going to get deeper into what John's all about and who he is. So stand by. We got some people to talk to during the break. Talk to you later. Bye.
You're listening to the Industrial Talk Podcast Network.
All right, get your calendars. Okay, I'll wait. Just go get them. All right, we've got a couple of events that you need to take note of. This is sponsored by those wonderful people at Reliability Web. They're the ones that are passionate about reliability, asset management, of course, maintenance. They do it all. Go out to their website at reliabilityweb.com. Now, July 17th through the 19th. That's July 17th through the 19th. This is in New Orleans, Louisiana, right around the corner from where I'm at. This is the Vibration Institute. This is the Asset Conditioning Management Training Symposium. You got to be there because I'm going to be there, and I want you to be there so that we can talk. The next one is Maximo World. That is August 7th through the 9th. This is in Florida, Lake Buena Vista. Now, anybody who's interested in Maximo will be there, so you need to be there. I will be there. Of course I'll be there because I want to be there. So please, put those two things down, and if you have an event that you want to try to go to, get out there on reliabilityweb.com, go to events. I guarantee you there's something there for you. So thank you very much. I will see you at those events. If I don't, I'm going to be upset. So have a great day. Be safe as well. All right, it's Scott McKenzie with Industrial Talk. Once again, we're coming from the 2018 EHS conference here in Galveston, and I'm talking to John Grubbs. He knows a lot about what's going on in the industry as well as how to create a workforce that is quite sustainable. So, John, we were talking offline. I want to talk to you a little bit about you and who you are and what you're all about, and start to get a little real about who you and what's important to you. We talked about leadership and talked about the importance of changing within this industrial world, how they approach resources and so on. What do you consider your leadership style? You, John, if you came on in, what is your leadership style?
Well, I struggled with that in the beginning of this journey. I really, read a lot, and I said, I want to know what I identify with the most. And I think if I had to really encapsulate it in a simple, easy to understand idea, I would say it's the upside down pyramid, that when you say yes to a leadership position, be it a supervisor, be it a manager, be it an executive, that we're in a position of service to the people that we're blessed enough to lead. And I think that's something that a lot of people profess to believe they are, but they don't actually act in a way that demonstrates that belief. I'll give you an example. If you go to work thinking about all of the problems you have to solve, all the issues that you have to face, all of the struggles that you have to organize or help the organization work through, that is a traditional leader. A servant leader on the way to work is constantly thinking about who they can help be successful, and who do they need to, to check on, who do they need to give a little bit of encouragement to. It's a completely different mindset shift from the traditional leadership perspective.
Yeah, but it has to happen. But in the world that we live in today, John, we do well with carrot and stick. We do well with, do it this way, this is our result, and if you don't do it right, well, here comes the stick. Yeah. And how do you stop that culture in the carrot and stick world?
Yeah, and I call that motivation 1.0. That's management 1.0, the carrot and the stick. I said the true way to really gain a traction with this new workforce is to use management 2.0, which is intrinsic motivation. So giving people that need on the inside to want to be successful at whatever task they're performing. It could be a menial task, or it could be a very complicated task, but when they're doing it for themselves on the inside, it's a completely different type of motivation. Extrinsic motivation, the carrot and the stick, that worked with a generation that would tolerate it, but today's generation, they're not going to tolerate it, or they're not going to tolerate it long.
And that's yeah. That is a big problem, because there's just a lot of, and I'll say it, legacy individuals that have grown up in that carrot and stick, that extrinsic motivating world. And in your conversations you have with CEOs, are they willing to say, okay, I got to clean house, I've got to change it?
Well, first of all, their methodology, the 1.0 methodology, would be fine if there were a shortage of carrots. But everybody's got carrots, and everybody's got sticks. When I talk to a CEO about their culture, I compare the culture of their organization to pickle juice. It is whatever everything in the organization is going to become is related to that juice that pickles whatever you put into it. So if you go out and recruit a top engineer or a top manager, and you bring them and you immerse them in your pickle juice, before long, they're going to become whatever that pickle juice represents for your culture. And, when they look at me with that puzzled look, I'll share a quote from one of my favorite economists. Peter Drucker said, "Culture eats strategy for breakfast." So I tell them there's nothing more important than you working on the culture of your organization. You have managers to execute, to do the tactical work. Your job as the CEO is to get the right mix of people in your organization that will give you the best pickle juice for your organization. You notice there's a big jar of pickles right here on the table.
Yep.
And I've been giving away a little pickle juice all day.
Yep. I like that quote of culture eats strategy for lunch. I mean, that is true, because I've been in organizations where the culture is so caustic.
Yeah.
And your effectiveness as an organization is suboptimal at best. And if I was a CEO and I'm stepping back and I see that caustic environment, I'm going to come to you or somebody like you to say, what do I do to stop it? And sometimes it requires cleaning house.
Yeah.
But that's a bold decision by that CEO or that executive.
But that's what they get paid for. That's the job.
It's true.
No shortcuts. Yesterday when I gave the presentation, I said there are two types of tumors in organizations. There's benign tumors and malignant tumors. The benign tumors are the people in your organization who are negative. They're always pessimistic. They always talk bad about what the company does. You know, they get a free lunch. It wasn't the right lunch, whatever. But those malignant tumors are those people in positions of power in your organization that can kill everything you're trying to accomplish. So when I go in with these CEOs, we break people into different groups and quadrants, and I'll help them self-identify who those tumors are. And I said, your number one job is not production. It's not safety. It's not profitability. Your number one job is to de-hire those toxic tumors from this organization.
I call it the individuals that like kicking the dog. It's like they make a bad decision, but they kick somebody that's, you know, has no defense of themselves, and they just kick the dog.
That's it.
And I made a comment. I said, those are the individuals that I always try to find.
Yeah.
And then you deal with them effectively.
And they're usually cowards by nature anyway.
Absolutely. Now that's important. Now, I'm going to, outside of all that, I want to talk a little bit about where you see you going in your business. What's your aspiration? What are you looking to do with your current business here?
That's a great question. The speech I gave at lunch was about one simple theme, that I am on a mission. I am on a mission to eradicate transactional management in the workplace. Transactional managers pay for a task. And I'm telling people that that's not going to cut it anymore. That's not going to work moving forward. We need to help people find purpose in their work. We need to help people find a community to work with. But probably most of all, we need to help people find an identity at work, something that makes them feel like they matter. If you can do those three things, purpose, identity, and community, you can become a powerful magnet for top talent.
Yeah. And that's real important. But once again, it gets down to, is that organization willing to change so drastically that they're willing to embrace what you just said?
Yeah.
Because it's necessary.
Yeah. Change or be changed is what I tell these CEOs. And it's funny, there's a CEO of $1 billion company that I was working with. He brought in a toxic malignant tumor in the mid part of his organization. And I was getting information from his team. And of course, the tumor doesn't look like a tumor from the top. It's covered with skin. Right. It's invisible. But underneath the skin, where all the employees are, that tumor was very evident. And I told this CEO with as much love and kindness as I could, I said, you're going to have to get rid of this guy or he's going to kill your organization. I said, if he doesn't, they're going to get rid of you. And on December 31st of 2017, I got a message that he was let go as CEO of that company. And, you know, now the hope is that the new CEO is going to be able to diagnose that tumor before it creates more people. All of the people below that guy are creating exit strategies. They're leaving a lifetime of employment to find other jobs because of this one individual who has made this organization very toxic, very bad pickle juice.
That's amazing. Wow, my gosh. Now, in that case, so you're going down that road. How do you define success for you? I mean, you're saying, hey, this is my quest, transactional management. I don't want this to happen. We got to create an environment that supports these three principles: purpose.
Yeah.
What's success for you? How do you define that?
Well, you know, for me, I think that the biggest satisfaction in life is doing things that make a difference in the life of others. You know, and I'm hoping that my work, that my research, that all of the experience that I've had adds value to the companies that I work with. And if they find value in what I do, then, you know, I feel like I've made something better that day. And I go to bed at night thinking, you know what, I helped a few people out. I helped people get better at what they do. I helped people keep a job. I helped an organization perform better. That's what defines success for me. It's that I had that intrinsic motivation to do this just for the sake of helping people get better.
One of the things, and I'm going to transition to another topic here real quick. One of the things that always fascinates me, John, is how rapid change is happening and my inability to keep up with it. And so it's like going out and buying that high-def TV one day and then realize you missed out on another higher defer at a cheaper price the next day, because you just it's how do you
stay current, stay relevant in a rapidly changing environment, and it's just everything. It's so dynamic out there.
I don't know if you can ever keep up. I mean, it is changing fast, and I'm not going to tell your listeners that, hey, I can keep up with this. But what I think great leaders do is put themselves in the river where the flowing is most rapid, so that they're immersed in the need for change. It's easy to stay on the bank where it's safe and just watch everyone else go by. It's a lot more difficult to put yourself out there. And I think the CEOs that are most successful are constantly looking for the direction they need to take their organization in for the future. And it could be short term. It could be, what's your business going to look like in the year 2025? I work with some CEOs, and we have constant, honest discussions with the idea of whether or not our business is going to be relevant in 2025. So if they're not looking out, then you can't see it. It's kind of like trying to keep a windrow straight when you're baling hay. The only way you can do it is to look at the horizon. If you look in front of the tractor, you're going to have a crooked row.
Right. What are, with some of the feedback that you are receiving from CEOs, what are some of their concerns about this from a macro, not a micro, from a macro point of view? Some of the things that, if they want to be relevant, what's keeping them awake at night?
Well, I think the biggest thing for 2018 is talent retention. How do I keep the best people on my team? I think smart, informed CEOs are not resting on the idea that their best people will stay, because companies like me, I go out and help their competition find their best people. In other words, I help them put a talent strategy together, say, okay, where's the best place to get a good engineer that fits with your culture? Or where's the best place to get a good doctor that fits with your culture? So I proactively put together a talent strategy that includes retention and attraction. And it's complicated, but they've got to be willing to commit to those tactics that we put together in that strategy, or not. And if they're not willing to form a talent strategy, then they're just ebbing and flowing with the current. They're not using a rudder and steering within that river.
We're going to wrap it up here. Now, I've got one last question to ask you, and I want you to sort of do the best you can to sort of quantify as much as possible for our listeners, like your parting shot, your last recommendation in this world that's constantly changing, evolving, growing, whatever, and you're talking to industrial individuals. What's your recommendation?
I think the thing that I would leave your listeners with is this idea that we must be the change we see in the world. In other words, if we're not constantly changing ourselves, exposing ourselves to new information, to new philosophies, to new books, to new ideas, then we are going to get passed by those who are. So if we're constantly changing ourselves, I think it becomes a natural evolution to change our businesses, because we're going to see things differently. Our perspective is going to change. Instead of seeing it at the 10,000-foot level, maybe a CEO needs to go down and spend some time on the front lines and try to understand the pain points of using their product or doing the job. I think when you do that, you start to have different perspective. It's real easy to hide from reality than it is to immerse yourself in it.
That is a great comment, because one of the things that I try to push, and I know that you can appreciate this, when you were a kid and your mother or dad said, hey, go to the library and find out that answer, that took a lot of effort. But right now we have no excuses of not finding information. It's all there. It's in your hand. There's no excuse for not knowing and not being committed to, I'm going to be the change. I'm going to invest time, energy, and effort in learning, growing, and or somebody else is going to pass you up in a big way.
Absolutely. I think I consume, I try to read several books a week, but when I find one that I really find traction with, I'll consume it over and over and over and over until I get the material in my head the way I need to understand it. And I think if leaders aren't doing that constantly, if they're not constantly immersed in learning, that we get naturally complacent. We get comfortable, and comfort is not the place we want to be. We want to be in our discomfort zone.
Yeah, not in this world. No. With change happening so fast. Now, you're out there on LinkedIn.
I am.
You got a Facebook?
I do. Business page.
Got a business page, and that business page is?
I think it's at johngrubbsspeaks.com.
John Grubbs Speaks. And then, of course, John Grubbs on?
johngrubbs.com, and then John Grubbs on Twitter.
That's pretty easy to sort of follow you down there.
There's not too many Grubbs in the world, thank goodness.
Well, if they were more like you, that'd be just a doggone good thing. So, hey, thank you, John. I really appreciate it. I know that you're busy here at this conference, and I really appreciate me, pitching a tent and camping here in your wonderful location.
All right. Well, thanks, Scott. I enjoyed it.
No,
as
thank
always.
you. And thank you very much for joining the Industrial Talk podcast. We're going to be taking a break, and I'll join you on the other side. Thank you again. Hey, once again, this is Scott McKenzie with Industrial Talk. If you like what you're listening to, please feel free to sign up for the free podcast as well as the blogs. I'll try to keep it all relevant to your business and hopefully be able to provide some insight into what we do at Industrial Talk and what you do as a professional. Hope to see you soon.
You're listening to the Industrial Talk Podcast Network.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, that is John Grubbs. All-around great guy. But, man, is he knowledgeable about workforce and all the challenges that are taking place within the industrial space and getting that engaged workforce. John knows it. So you got to go out. You got to connect with him. He's got a LinkedIn account. Of course, he's got a website. Of course, it's all in the interview. So go out there. He's an open book. Really, really great guy. So don't hesitate. So if you do, it's your fault because it's not his. He's a great guy. So once again, thank you once again for joining the Industrial Talk Podcast. We'll be back next week. And get out there to the Industrial Dojo. Let me know what you think because and connect with me because I truly want to connect with you. So once again, be safe. Thank you. And have a wonderful week. And I'll talk to you again.